and I have discussed this many times, and he's aware that we are striking a fair balance between supporting farmers and fixing the public services on which all of our rural communities rely. We've taken a fair and balanced approach that protects the family farm while also fixing the public services that we all rely on, including our own constituents.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Pleas to the Minister and the Secretary of State ignored from farmers, just as other pleas from other sectors key to driving growth in Scotland have been ignored. Scotland has the worst of both worlds: two socialist and economically illiterate governments, and a Scotland office that turns a deaf ear to the pleas of the sectors that could drive growth in our country. It's no surprise the Scottish people are about to reject Labour in May's election yet again. So after today's budget, who does the Secretary of State think will feel most abandoned? Scottish farmers, Scottish distillers, Scottish family businesses, Scottish oil and gas workers, or poor Anna Sarwar and the Scottish Labour Party?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is perfectly well aware that the majority of those claiming relief under agricultural property relief will be completely unaffected, 3/4 of them. What will affect every single person in Scotland, however, is the Chancellor's budget, which is set to help with living standards, drive growth and put the sound financial management of our public finances at the heart.
Number 4, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Immigration is, of course, a reserved issue, and the Home Secretary set out last week an asylum policy that will work for all parts of the United Kingdom. It contains the most sweeping asylum reforms in modern times, commensurate to the scale of the issues before us. These reforms will restore control, contribution and fairness to the system. I'm proud that our country has always been fair, tolerant and compassionate, and this government will always defend those values.
Mr. Speaker, this government's new heinous asylum and immigration policy marks a dark moment for many who have chosen Scotland to be their home, even leaving children born in Scotland at risk of deportation. I don't know if the ministers actually notice, but we're facing a population and demography crisis that this will only make 10 times worse. And if we don't address it, this is going to have a huge impact on our economy and social services. So why does Scottish Labour actually support an immigration policy that is contrary to the Scottish interest?
Mr. Speaker, what Scottish Labour, like the rest of the Labour Party, supports is a system that is both humane and restores control. That's in the best interest of communities, it's in the best interest of those seeking asylum and to migrate themselves. We are proud to support it, and we know that the rest of the country wants a system that has both control and fairness as its guiding principles.
Chris Murray.
Speaker, in Scotland there are approximately 4 times as many people fleeing oppression from Ukraine and Hong Kong as there are asylum seekers. There has been no public outcry, they have been welcomed. This shows Scotland is a generous country, willing to play our part if the system is fair and controlled. And moreover, this year, 14 children drowned in the Channel coming here. Does the Minister agree with me that there is nothing progressive about not fixing a system where public support for refugees drains and children drown?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will join me in remembering those children that have drowned in the Channel, and I couldn't agree with my honourable friend more. There is nothing progressive or humane about a system that incentivises people to take those terrible, terrible risks with life, and I commend my honourable friend for all the work that he's done with those seeking asylum and refuge over very many years.
Chris Kay.
Question number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the funding of Forth Valley College is a matter for the Scottish Government. Scottish colleges have had their funding cut by 20% between 21-22 and 25-26. As the UK Government, we have delivered a record funding settlement to the Scottish Government. So for as long as there has been no final decision reached regarding the Alloa campus, I would urge the Scottish Government, in the words of Flower of Scotland, to think again.
Chris Kay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Years of SNP underfunding have pushed Forth Valley College into financial crisis. Just when we need it to deliver skills for Stilling's film studio, the Grangemouth transition and shipbuilding and defence in the Forth and Clyde, the Alloa campus is facing closure. Does he agree that the SNP is undermining Scotland's future by neglecting the institutions that drive growth, and that Scotland needs a Labour government with Anna Sarwar to rebuild our colleges and our skills base?
Mr Speaker, the facts are clear. The spending review was historic for Scotland and delivered the largest real-term settlement for the Scottish Government in the 25 years of devolution, with an average £50.9 billion per year between 2026-27 and 28-29. It simply makes no sense to be cutting the FE College budget in Scotland by 20%. It's definitely time for that new direction.
Susan Murray, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. After 18 years of SNP government in Scotland, the education system is failing and qualified Scottish pupils are being turned away from Scottish universities. Meanwhile, the private sector in the west of Scotland, like the Energy Technical Academy in my constituency of Mid Dunbartonshire, is upskilling workers who are paying so that they can install EV chargers and heat pumps. Will the Secretary of State explain to the Scottish Government that educating young people and further education training is good for Scotland?
Mr Speaker, I sincerely hope they're listening to the very powerful points made by the Honourable Lady. 89,600 young people in Scotland today are not in work, education or training. That's equivalent to about 16.1%. 1 in 6 of our young people in Scotland. Scotland deserves better than a Scottish Government failing 1 in 6 of its young people.
Richard Baker.
Question number 6, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Mr Speaker, the UK Government is transforming our defence sector into an even more powerful engine of growth, with skills and training being a central pillar of that strategy. If the SNP-led Scottish Government won't do the right thing, then we will. That's why we stepped up with £2.5 million to fund that specialist welding centre in Glasgow, and we continue to work on exactly that agenda.
Richard Baker.
Mr Speaker, the recruitment of 14 new apprentices at the Methil Yard in my constituency, saved from bankruptcy by this Labour Government, protecting 200 skilled apprenticeships, is a stark contrast to the failure of the SNP on apprenticeships in the defence sector, which means many companies struggle to recruit skilled workers locally. Will my right honourable friend work with colleagues in the Ministry of Defence to promote Methil as a prime location for future defence contracts, so that Avanti UK can create more new apprenticeships at the Yard and work successfully with the Scottish Labour Government at Holyrood?
Mr Speaker, I met with Navantia Management in Fife on Monday. I met with the Defence Procurement Minister yesterday. There are huge opportunities thanks to his powerful advocacy of the workforce in Methil and the work that we can do together. The truth is we have a Scottish Government that is dithering on defence. We have a Labour Government determined to do right by the country on defence.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I was delighted when Eastriggs in my constituency was shortlisted for a new UK munitions factory. The Secretary of State will know its long history in munitions and the fact that the Ministry of Defence already own the site. So will the Scotland Office continue to promote the project but also join me in facing down the Scottish Government's anti-defence industry stance?
Yes, Mr Speaker, I can offer the right honourable gentleman the assurance he seeks in relation to facing down a Scottish Government dithering on defence. I would pay tribute to his passionate advocacy of the particular site he speaks of in Dumfriesshire, and I can assure him that we in the Scotland Office will continue to work with our colleagues on the MOD as we make sure that we've got the factories we need to keep our country safe.
Question 7,
Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, through the Pride in Place programme, we're investing almost £500 million to revitalise communities across Scotland. As part of this, the Scotland Office has recently completed collecting evidence from MPs, MSPs, local authorities and community groups to inform the selection of 14 new neighbourhoods that will each benefit from £20 million over 10 years.
Liz Stewart.
Mr Speaker, can I ask the Minister for assurances with respect to the timeline of the Pride in Place funding? It's crucial to get projects up and running as soon as possible, and while it might be too early for her to wear a Santa hat, can she tell me if successful local authorities will expect an early Christmas present?
Mr Speaker, I can confirm to the Honourable Lady that she won't have long to wait. It's in all our interest to get these coming down the chimney as soon as possible.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. 40% of children in Stenhouse in my constituency of Edinburgh West live in poverty. There are 9 Pride in Place projects being considered across Edinburgh, but none including that area of deprivation. So can the Minister tell me if there are plans to change the criteria so that areas like that could be included and attack problems like child poverty?
Mr Speaker, there are no plans to change the criteria against which local authority areas will be selected, but I can confirm we don't have very long to wait before the areas themselves will be confirmed.
Yeah. Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, can I welcome in the gallery His Excellency the Honourable Stephen Francis Smith, the Australian High Commissioner to the UK. Stephen's term as High Commissioner comes to an end. We wish him all the best in retirement and thank you for what you've done in the UK. We now come to questions to the Prime Minister. Rachel Hopkins.
Question 1, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, can I begin by confirming your remarks about Stephen, who's in the gallery, as I understand it. He's been an incredible servant and a good friend to the United Kingdom, and we wish him well in everything he does in the future. Mr Speaker, today's budget will be a Labour budget with Labour values to deliver for the British people's priorities. Mr Speaker, I know what it feels like to sit around the kitchen table worried about bills that can't be paid. That's why this budget is for families that I know today are equally worried about the cost of living. That's why we're rolling out free breakfast clubs, free childcare and free school meals. And today we'll be going further to deliver the change we're elected to bring about. Cutting NHS waiting lists, cutting the national debt and cutting the cost of living. Mr Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. For years and years, rail fares have gone up and up, but this is set to change next year. Can the Prime Minister confirm that commuters in my constituency will see around £400 saving on their annual season ticket as a result of this government freezing rail fares? And can he confirm this is only possible because we have a Labour government?
Well, I can confirm next year we're freezing rail fares for the first time in 30 years, saving millions of commuters hundreds of pounds. And yes, that's only possible because we have a Labour government investing in Great British Railways and putting more money in the pockets of passengers. Contrast our approach with the Leader of the Opposition, who says the minimum wage is a burden, she thinks, and she wants to means test the state pension.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kevin Burnell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And can I first pay tribute to the many farmers who have come to Westminster today to protest the shameful attack on them in last year's budget. I want them to know that Conservatives stand with them. Mr Speaker?
Yeah. They arrest them, we stand with them.
Mr Speaker, this has been the most chaotic lead-up to a budget in living memory, with resignations, hostile briefings and...
Can I just say to a couple of you, if you don't want the budget, make your mind up now.
Nobody wants this budget, Mr Speaker. With resignations, hostile briefings and leaks galore, even just in the last 10 minutes, an unprecedented leak of the OBR analysis. Mr Speaker, these leaks have been so serious that even the former chief economist of the Bank of England has said, and I quote, that Labour's fiscal fandango is the single biggest reason why growth has flatlined. Does the Prime Minister agree with Andy Haldane, and does he have an explanation for this complete shambles?
We all know the biggest shambles in living history, the Liz Truss budget. And what did she say at the time? Did she say, I don't agree, this must be wrong? No, she said, I think Liz Truss is 100% right. 100%. Not much room for flexibility. Not one thing was wrong with it, in her view. So we won't be taking lectures from her. Matters for the OBR. The Chancellor will set out the budget in just a few minutes' time.
Mr Speaker, we're talking about the leaks. The Prime Minister doesn't seem to appreciate the impact of these budget leaks on the UK economy. Even the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister has said this morning that the leaks were unacceptable. So will the Prime Minister launch an investigation into the budget leaks and punish those responsible?
Mr. Speaker, it's literally about 25 minutes before the budget will be set out in all, where we'll take further decisions. The Chancellor will set it out, but thanks to the decisions she's already taken, we've got 5 million extra NHS appointments, waiting lists are coming down, mortgages are cheaper, we've expanded free school meals. That's 100,000 children lifted out of poverty, a moral mission for this government. Compare that to the record opposite any day of the week.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about the decisions she's already taken. If they were that great, we wouldn't have all those farmers outside protesting. He doesn't want to talk about leaks, but we can see that the chaos in Number 10 is having real-world consequences. Instead of focusing on the economy, they've been fighting like rats. Several journalists reported that Number 10 sources had briefed against the Health Secretary and other senior cabinet ministers. The Prime Minister then told us that these briefings did not come from Number 10. Will he repeat on the floor of the House the claim that none of his advisers has briefed against members of the Cabinet?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've been really clear about this. No one in Number 10 has briefed against Cabinet ministers. And the Health Secretary is doing a fantastic job. He stood before the electorate just before the last election. He said we'd deliver 2 million extra appointments for the NHS in the first year of a Labour government. There he is. What did he do? Not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 million extra appointments for the NHS. They don't understand this language, Mr. Speaker, because they left everything absolutely broken.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister expects us to believe him. No one does. We all know that he did not have a serious leak inquiry. What he did, Mr. Speaker, was he asked Morgan McSweeney to investigate Morgan McSweeney, and then Morgan McSweeney discovered that Morgan McSweeney was innocent. All of this calls into question the Prime Minister's judgment. All of this calls into question the Prime Minister's judgment. We read this weekend that he wants the former Deputy Prime Minister back in his cabinet. He must have forgotten that she had to resign only a few months ago for tax evasion. When did the Prime Minister decide that lawbreakers can be lawmakers?
Mr. Speaker, while she's scrolling through Twitter, we've delivered rail fares frozen, prescription charges frozen, the minimum wage boosted. We're focusing on the cost of living, the single most important thing for this country. She's focusing on tittle-tattle.
It's not tittle-tattle, Mr. Speaker. We all know that he's only talking about welcoming the Deputy Prime Minister back because he is desperate to shore up his crumbling leadership. But if he were to welcome her back, will he set a condition that she must pay back the £40,000 of property taxes she avoided, the same property taxes they're very happy to put on everyone else, and will she also return her £17,000 of severance pay?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the former Deputy Prime Minister is the biggest social mobility story this country has ever told. She started from humble beginnings and fought her way to the very top. I'm very proud of what she's achieved in politics. I'm very proud of everything she's done for this Labour government.
That sounds like a no, Mr. Speaker. I've never heard the Prime Minister speak so highly of people avoiding their taxes. But in summary, this just looks like a government that is a slow-motion car crash. His cabinet are briefing against each other, his MPs are planning for life after him, and the most chaotic run-up to a budget in recent memory is happening on his watch. Even the Chief Whip is telling MPs that he wants out. The truth is simple, Mr. Speaker. His MPs don't trust him, the markets don't trust him, and the public certainly don't trust him. When will he finally accept that the chaos starts and ends with him?
The most chaotic budget was the Liz Truss budget. It did huge damage to our country. We're still suffering from that damage. And what did she say about Liz Truss? She obviously does still think it. When asked, was Liz Truss right? 100% right, she said. The most chaotic, damaging budget there's ever been. And she sticks by it. I'm very interested to see her response to this budget if she thinks Liz Truss got it right. Mr. Speaker, what we're doing is focusing on cutting waiting lists, cutting the national debt, cutting the cost of living, renewing our country, a Labour budget with Labour values, delivering for the British people.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the moment, everyone is being bombarded with adverts and emails for Black Friday, encouraging them to spend money on so-called time-limited deals, leading to panic buying, increasing debt, buyer regret, and not to mention the impact on the planet, with delivery and returns of goods responsible for millions of tonnes of CO2 emissions. Does he agree with me that instead of rushing to buy online, people should look to their high streets to support local businesses and keep money in the local economy this Christmas?
Well, I want to see our high streets thriving, and we encourage everyone to support local businesses this Christmas. Through our small business strategy, we've got £3 billion boost to help small businesses expand, and we've tackled the most significant reforms to tackle late payments, the most significant in 25 years, Mr. Speaker. And the Chancellor will have to say more about that in just a moment.
Sir Ed Davey, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've just seen in the leaked OBR documents that taxes are going up to a historic record high. So will the Prime Minister explain why Labour is hiking people's taxes instead of fixing the £90 billion Brexit black hole in the public finances by growing our economy with a new, detailed, brilliant trade deal with our European partners?
Well, he'll only have to wait a few minutes for the full details of the budget. But, Mr. Speaker, every week he comes here with the same problem. He always wants more spending, and he never wants to say how he's going to raise the money for it. The two things can't go together.
Sir Ed Davey.
Speaker, we want to grow the economy, not tax the economy. But if I can take him on to another issue, Mr. Speaker, I hope everyone in the House shares my alarm that a former leader of a political party in Wales has been found guilty of betraying our country and has now been sentenced to over 10 years in prison for his treachery. The Prime Minister said that Reform should hold an independent investigation, and he is right, but we both know that that's not going to happen. So given Reform won't, he must. So will he now launch a national investigation into Russian infiltration into our politics?
Well, he's right to highlight this very serious case, a long sentence for pro-Russian bribery in the Reform Party at the highest level. You would think a leader of a political party would want to get to the bottom of that and ask the question, how on earth did that happen in the Reform Party? And what other links are there between Reform and Russia? But no, the leader of Reform doesn't want to do it. Because, Mr. Speaker, we know he doesn't want to know the answer to the question because Reform is riddled with pro-Putin propaganda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of traffic chaos and increasingly creative traffic diversions, residents of Parkside and Marston Grange in my constituency are beginning to wonder whether the A513 at Beaconside is a permanent monument to the traffic cone. In the time that Staffordshire County Council and Taylor Wimpey have taken to complete one stretch of road, we've had 6 Prime Ministers, not to mention Notre Dame burned down and was rebuilt using medieval building techniques. So what can be done to hold developers and local authorities properly to account so that essential infrastructure is delivered on time with minimum disruption?
Well, it's staggering that an important upgrade for drivers to improve their journeys has been delayed for 8 long years. And I understand the scheme is currently being held up by the Reform-led council, Kel Sabri, who are proving as hopeless in local government as everybody anticipated. Mr. Speaker, we've invested £24 billion in our roads, and I call on Staffordshire Council to end the delay, get on with the job, and get this scheme started for her constituents.
Alison Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. University Hospitals Sussex currently have 350 people, well enough to go home, for occupying beds. That is the same number of beds as in Princess Royal Hospital in Hayward Heath in my constituency. The reason they can't go home is because there is no social care package for them to go to. This is terrible for them, puts strain on the trust and is ruinous to the taxpayer. Given there is no urgent plan to reform social care, what is the Prime Minister's plan to bring them home for Christmas?
Well, as she knows, we are reforming social care, and I've asked Baroness Casey to lead on that. And she's had the first of her cross-party meetings to build consensus, which is obviously what we need on this. As I've said out a number of times, the first phase will report in 2026, so we can reform as we go on. There will obviously be a phase after that. And I remind the House we've already boosted social care funding by £3.7 billion, record increases also to the carers allowance, and £500 million for the first ever fair pay agreement to properly recognise and reward carers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister aware that because of the decision by Reform's Durham County Council to scrap support introduced by Labour in 2013, a typical working family in Stanley will be £170 worse off? How would the Prime Minister contrast the values of this Labour government with a Reform Party dividing our country and hitting working people in their pockets?
Well, I thank him for raising this. The more we see of reform, the more we see their true colours. In this case, making people £170 worth off. But their true colours also in relation to the member for Clacton. His explanation, Mr. Speaker, in recent days, in relation to the stories about what he may have said in the past, is unconvincing, to say the least. He says he never engaged with racism with intent. With intent. What does that mean? Didn't engage with racism with intent. I have no doubt that if a young Jewish student was hissed at to mimic the sound of a gas chamber, they would find it upsetting. He may want to forget that. They won't. He clearly remembers some of what happened. He should seek those people out and go and apologise to them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lewis, not his real name, is an Eastbourne boy with special educational needs who was left traumatised after his passenger assistant relentlessly and brutally restrained him on his home-to-school transport. It only became clear to Lewis's mum, who is in the gallery today, what happened on that day when he returned home visibly distressed and bruised. And that's because, shockingly, there is no statutory requirement to report incidents of physical restraint on school transport, nor national training standards. So will the Prime Minister address this loophole in his upcoming SEND reforms to ensure that SEND's children in Eastbourne and beyond can travel to school with the safety and dignity that they deserve?
Well, can I say to him and to Lewis's mum, who's with us, that incidents like that should not be happening. I know that he's met, I think, with the Education Minister to discuss this. Every child should have tailored support, including on transport to school, and I can reassure him and Lewis's mum that that principle will be central to our reforms.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, Roman Osborne, a 10-year-old in my constituency, hand-delivered a letter to 10 Downing Street to tell the Prime Minister about an accident that he had outside his primary school of Trimley St Martin in February, which left him spending 3 days in hospital and many, many more months recovering. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister back my campaign, Safer and at the Gates, and will he call on Tory-led Suffolk County Council to do the right thing and re-review the road and put the right safety measures in place outside Trimley St Martin and the other schools in my constituency?
Can I thank her for that and thank Roman for his letter, which I took time to read last night. And I wanted just to read a short sentence from it, from Roman. He said this: "This accident wouldn't have happened if there was a safe place to cross the road. I'm concerned for other children's safety, and I don't want another accident like mine to happen again to anyone else." Mr. Speaker, what an incredible young boy, aged just 10. I totally agree with him, and I say to Roman, this is what we're going to do. Roman, I've asked ministers to work with all the right people to look at his school and get a safe crossing in place. And the Roads Minister will be happy to meet my honourable friend to discuss the road safety strategy.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I met with farmers on Whitehall, and on Saturday farmers supplying milk to family-run White Farms who have been making traditional cheddar cheese near Bruton for 160 years. They all told me, Mr. Speaker, the family farm tax as it stands will devastate their businesses. So if he really wants growth, will the Prime Minister listen to farmers, industry, the EFRA Select Committee, even his own MPs, and pause and rethink this damaging and regressive tax?
Mr. Speaker, we've invested a record £11.8 billion into sustainable farming this Parliament, and we set out a 25-year farming roadmap focused on increasing year-on-year productivity and profitability in farms. That is vitally important.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the COVID inquiry reported that 23,000 deaths occurred in England in the first wave of the pandemic that could have been prevented due to the UK response being too little too late. These were not just 23,000 deaths, Mr. Speaker. These were 23,000 people who had family and friends who loved them, and valuable lives that were cut short due to an abysmal failure of leadership by Boris Johnson and his government. They were categorically failed by a Prime Minister who prevaricated, delayed and prioritised political expediency over making the tough decisions that could have averted tragedy. If the Prime Minister were to lead us through the next pandemic, will he value saving lives above all else?
Well, she's right. The report is a sombre moment, and it's important to remember the scale of suffering and the scale of the loss of life, which is made clear in the testimonies of the families in the report, and to remember the incredible contribution of frontline workers and everyone who focused on protecting others. Mr. Speaker, we're committed to learning the lessons needed from the COVID inquiry to protect and prepare us for the future. And the pandemic does still weigh heavily on our public finances and our NHS. That's why we've already conducted a pandemic exercise to test preparedness and agreed a historic global pandemic agreement to improve our ability to prevent global disease threats alongside our partners.
Mr. Speaker, I hope the Prime Minister will agree with me that the defence industry in Somerset is a key engine for growth, jobs and innovation. Leonardo in Yeovil is making a fantastic progress with the Proteus uncrewed helicopter, but the future of that project, thousands of jobs at the site in Yeovil and the 320 million Leonardo contribute to local GDP is dependent on the new medium helicopter contract. Will the Prime Minister reassure my constituents that he supports the industry in Yeovil, and will his government finally get round to awarding this long overdue contract?
Well, can I pay tribute to those in Somerset and his constituency in the defence sector, which is hugely important to our country and our security. I can confirm we're continuing with the establishment procurement process for the new medium helicopter programme to deliver modern equipment for our armed forces. That's part of the biggest sustained boost to our defence since the Cold War, and I'm determined to see a defence dividend of investment in British jobs and apprentices, including in his constituency. Mr. Speaker, that builds on the £8 billion Typhoon deal that we've secured, the £4 billion maritime deal with Indonesia, and the £10 billion frigate deal with Norway.
Serena Breckenridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I joined Wensfield men walking and talking on International Men's Day, a fantastic group who are strengthening our community through good company and what Stephen calls a growing band of brothers. In an age of pressure, polarisation and endless phone scrolling, they bring men together to support one another. Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating all involved and explain how the first ever men's health strategy will back similar grassroots initiatives?
Can I thank her? It is so important that men have the space and support from their peers to discuss their mental health. Can I thank Men Walking and Talking for the work that they do that makes such a difference? We were proud to launch our men's health strategy last week to get more men the support they need. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to take a moment to thank my honourable friend for Cannock Chase for his honesty and bravery on International Men's Day. And I say again, men speaking so truthfully about their experiences is so powerful and inspires more to do the same. He's a credit to this House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Consequential to President Trump's misunderstanding of Putin's assessment going forward into. I've got it completely wrong, so let me do it without notes. There we are. What a day to do it. So, President, I can't. I've completely lost it, and I apologise. So let me read it. Let me read it because I'm going to carry on. I'm afraid the Prime Minister's not going to get away that easy. So, consequential to President Trump's misunderstanding of Putin's strategic intent for both Ukraine and Europe is the Prime Minister's solemn responsibility to keep this country safe. Given the hypersonic missile threat and the ballistic missile threat, known threat from Russia, and the fact that the United Kingdom has no current counter to that, what is the Prime Minister going to do to keep this country safe from those that have already threatened us?
I thank him for his question and his contribution to this important debate, and of course the contribution he made yesterday as well. It is the first duty of the Prime Minister to keep this country safe. It's the duty that is paramount and above all else, and I take it extremely seriously and treat it as my #1 priority. We review our security and defence arrangements all of the time, and we are particularly a leading member in NATO, which is the single most effective military alliance the world has ever seen.
Ben Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Chelsea and Fulham tell me that our top national priority must remain, as it is, economic growth. So does the Prime Minister agree that the swiftest way to achieve growth is for the government to be even more ambitious in negotiating with the European Union to remove the new red tape and trade barriers that have been holding back UK businesses, especially small and medium-sized ones, since the Conservatives' poorly managed exit from the European Union?
Well, the deal we struck with the EU will deliver on what the British public voted for last year, which is, as he says, boosting economic growth and restoring positive relations. And the deal we've struck is worth £9 billion to our economy in 2040. It includes an SBS agreement to cut supermarket prices and boost export opportunities. And the tourism reform would rip up that deal and leave us all paying more at the checkout.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to economic growth, this Labour government is all talk and no action. So maybe I can help the Prime Minister. Roadworks and traffic jams cost the UK economy £8 billion last year. This affects my constituents in Broxbourne every single day. They want to know what the government is doing about it, when the government is going to back working people and get Britain moving.
Under this government, growth is the highest in the G7 for the first half of this year. Under the last government, they crashed the economy.
Emily Darwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday was the UN International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, otherwise known as White Ribbon Day, in Milton Keynes and many other places. Will the Prime Minister join with me in congratulating Mr. Speaker on his commitment that this House will become the first national White Ribbon Parliament in the world? And will he join me, Mr. Speaker, and many members from across this House in making the White Ribbon promise to never use, excuse, or remain silent about men's violence against women?
Can I thank her for raising this really important issue? And I'm really proud, Mr. Speaker, on what you've done with this Parliament in relation to the White Ribbon campaign. We must then turn that from a ribbon into action. And I am really proud that this government is fully committed to tackling violence against women and girls. It is a political commitment, it is a personal commitment from me, and we'll do everything we can in relation to reducing violence against women and girls, which is pernicious. It is far more widespread than people appreciate, and we absolutely have to stop talking and start doing in relation to this.
Final question, Liz Sobel-Roberts.
From his previous answer, we can only conclude that the Prime Minister has faith in the member of Clacton to police his own party on Russian interference. But the leader of Reform has already said that this is beyond his capabilities. Why, therefore, is the Prime Minister so unwilling to take responsibility and launch a full investigation into foreign interference in our democracies.
Interference in our democracy, but the responsibility for the investigation of what happened in Reform lies with the leader of the Reform Party. Mr. Speaker, he's usually got plenty to say, and now he's totally silent on one of the most important issues. Mr. Speaker, he needs to speak up and answer those questions.
That completes Prime Minister's questions.
Point of order, Melstride.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On a point of order, Madam Deputy Speaker, this morning we have seen an unprecedented leak of the OBR's Economic and Fiscal Outlook report before the budget. This report contains market-sensitive information. It is utterly outrageous that this has happened, and this leak may indeed constitute a criminal act. In Prime Minister's questions, the Leader of the Opposition asked the Prime Minister about this leak, but he refused to answer her question. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, please can you advise this House what steps are at its disposal to force a leak inquiry into this matter? And would it be possible to ask the Table Office to distribute copies of the report given to the House, given that everybody outside of this House has already had the opportunity to read it?
Order! This is not a point of order for the Chair. The Chancellor is about to make her budget statement, and I expect members and their constituents wish to hear from the Chancellor directly. However, before I call the Chancellor to speak, I nonetheless wish to make a short statement. For a number of weeks, and yet again yesterday, there have been extensive briefings to the media on the government's fiscal policy and public finances. This disappointing trend in relation to budget briefings has been growing for a number of years under successive governments, but appears to have reached an unprecedented high. Weeks ago, we saw the Chancellor delivering a speech in Downing Street, setting the scene for the budget, as well as specific policy announcements being briefed out to the media in advance of today's financial statements. I don't need any help. And just a moment ago, it seems the OBR analysis has also appeared online. This all falls short of standards that the House expects. The premature disclosure of the contents of the budget has always been regarded as a supreme discourtesy to this House and to all the democratically elected members, not to mention to Mr. Speaker and to myself, the Chairman of Ways and Means. The government's own ministerial code cannot be clearer, as set out in paragraph 9.1. When Parliament is in session, the most important announcements of government policy should be made in the first instance to Parliament. Mr. Speaker has always upheld the rights of this House and its members to be treated with respect and to be the first to hear major government policy announcements on behalf of their constituents. As Chairman of Ways and Means, I have responsibility to oversee the House's consideration of the budget statement and the ensuing resolutions, which are described in Erskine May, paragraph 36-33, as the most important business of Ways and Means in this House. I want honourable members on all sides of the House to have adequate opportunity to hold the Chancellor to account, rather than hear and read about new policies on a daily basis in the media. And like many, I also expected better. Before I call the Chancellor of the Exchequer, I remind honourable members that copies of the budget resolutions will be available to them from the vote office in members' lobby at the end of the Chancellor's statement and online. Shh. I also remind honourable members that interventions are not taken during the Chancellor's statement, nor during replies to the Leader of the Opposition or the Leader of the Liberal Democrats. I call the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Chancellor.
Madam Deputy Speaker, it is my understanding that the Office of Budget Responsibility's Economic and Financial Outlook was released on their website before this statement. This is deeply disappointing and a serious error on their part. The Office for Budget Responsibility have already made a statement taking full responsibility for their breach. Madam Deputy Speaker, we are rebuilding our economy. Over the last 16 months, we have overhauled our planning system to get Britain building, forged new trade deals with the United States, India and the European Union, reformed our visa system to bring the brightest and the best to Britain,